So first, let's talk about improving the way you deal with your mailing lists, both with managing them and building those lists. And I want to start here, obviously, because the list is really the beginning of your email marketing program. You have to have people to send mail to for it to work. And also, it's really something that gets kind of ignored to a degree when talking about email best practices. And your list is just as important, if not more important, than the subject line you write and the content you put in. If you don't properly take care of your list, then it doesn't matter what you do in your emails, you are not going to succeed to the degree that you could with a better list. So first, managing your list better. As people come in to your to your actual system, whether they sign up through a form on your site or whether they come into your storefront and leave their information there, meet you at a trade show, talk to you on the phone, the most important thing you want to think about is not letting that lead go cold. Send them an email within 1 to 2 weeks of their signing up with you. The longer you wait to write them after sign up, the less likely they're going to be to take action with your emails and actually become an active participant in your email marketing program. Obviously not something that you want. You want them to be taking action. You want them to become a customer. So write them as soon as possible within 1 to 2 weeks. Then continue to email them at least once a month after that. Now I realize there are plenty of companies that do email on a more seasonal basis. There are companies that may feel like you don't have a reason to send email out on a monthly basis, but it's important that you stay in front of people, and once a month is a fairly good spot to hit on average to make sure that they remember you. Because if you only write someone once every few months, or you only write them in the winter, or you only write them in the summer, or whenever it happens to be, they may forget their interaction with your organization and be far less likely to open your emails when they receive them. So try to mail them at least once a month. Also, deliver the value you promised. And not only that, actually promise them a value at the time of sign up. So when people are coming to sign up with your mailing list, tell them what they're going to get as part of that sign up. Let them know what is the value. Are they going to get special offers? Have them sign up to get for special offers, or call it some sort of club or some sort of email, something that makes it sound more than it's like they're joining a list. If they're going to get a newsletter with information, tell them you're going to send them a newsletter with information. On our own site, we say sign up here to get tips and tricks every 2 weeks about email marketing, and that's what we send out when people sign up through that form is tips and information about email marketing every 2 weeks. The reason that's valuable to describe that is because obviously if you're telling someone you're going to give them something, you're going to get more people interested than if you're asking them to give you something. So make sure everyone in your organization knows about the value of your email marketing program so they can say, can I send you our newsletter instead of can I get your email address? Because that's always going to be better when they can say what the person's going to get over anything else. And then once that's happening, make sure that you're actually living up to what you've told people you're going to send them. If you told them you're going to send them special offers, make sure that they get special offers and not just get the same thing that everyone else gets who visits your website. Give them something that makes your emails valuable, and then continue to do that if you want them to keep taking action. And then test, and we're going to talk more about how you can test as we go. And again, don't let that lead go cold, as this wonderful image of a lead getting cold illustrates. So in thinking about how to get people to reach the point where you can actually manage them and keep them from growing cold, you have to think about how you can actually grow your mailing list. And growing your list, obviously, is not something that can happen all that quickly. It's not something that you're going to have 1,000,000 people next week to mail. You have to start with what you have and build from there to build your list organically, just as you do your own business and everything else you do. If you're going to be successful, there's no magic bullet, there's no get a big list quick scheme out there that's going to work properly to make your list explode. So, start by leveraging your existing network. Again, if it's just you or whether you have employees in your company, no matter how big your company happens to be, as I already mentioned, make sure everyone in your organization knows the value of your program so they can express it to other people who they deal with, to customers and prospects, so that they can get more people to sign up to be part of your list. Also, make sure you're covering all the different angles that you can for people to know they can even sign up for anything. If you have a storefront, there should be a sign up book or a fishbowl, something that fits the actual feel of your company at your register or at a waiting area where people are going to see it so they can sign up. That should also express to them what they're going to get through sign up if they do so. If you have a website, there needs to be an opt-in form on that website, and that opt-in form needs to be easy to sign because no one's going to go digging to find a way to sign up for you. You have to say, hey, sign up with me. Here's why. So if you don't have an opt-in form on your site already, put one up there. If you do, make sure that that opt-in form is accessible via at least one click or less. It just is displayed everywhere. Make sure it's accessible, again, by no more than one click from just about any page on the site so people can get to it. So then also put forward to a friend links in your emails. It doesn't hurt to do this. You can do it with one click in vertical response. We have insert menus in the editors where you can add this option. It's nice because it reminds people to forward your email on to a friend, which is never a bad thing, obviously. And also if they use the link you provide to forward the email on, then the friend will be given the opportunity to opt into your mailing list just by clicking a link. And so that helps you grow your list via word of mouth. And of course, even Vertical Response, a somewhat faceless internet company, obviously we're not going to be local for most people unless you're in San Francisco. Uh, More than half of our customers are actually referred by friends. So thinking about that on a more local basis, if you're a more regional or local company, you're going to have even more people learning about you from their friends. So giving people a reason and just reminding them to forward the email on is a very good thing to do. It's a constant process of building your list and maintaining it. You're going to lose from your list potentially around a quarter to a third of the people on your list every year to unsubscribing and to bouncing. That may sound like a lot, but you got to figure if people are bouncing back, if a quarter of your list bounce back every year is undeliverable, that's only people changing their address 1 out of every 4 years. And that's fairly common, at least right now. People change their email addresses fairly often. If you think back, do you have the same email address right now that you had 4 years ago? There's a good chance that you don't. So you have to consider that there's going to be attrition in your list. You're going to lose people, so you want to make sure you're replacing them with new people who are interested in your company. And one thing you definitely don't want to do is purchase or rent a mailing list because those are always going to cause you problems for the most part. The reason for it is that people on those lists do not know your company specifically. So not knowing your company, they will not expect to hear from you when the email arrives in the inbox and be far less likely to open your email up. You have to think about your own approach to these things whenever you get email in your own inbox. If you don't recognize the sender, how likely are you to take action with the message or even look at the message? So purchase lists are usually not going to be successful because the people on those lists generally didn't expect to be on them and then don't know how you even got their information. And also, when people don't recognize the sender, they're far more likely to report the email as spam. They might hit a button in their provider's inbox. They might send a complaint email somewhere. They might report you to a blacklist. And that can very quickly cause problems for you and make it much harder for you to get any of your email delivered in the future. So there are a lot of places out there that will make it seem like it's easy to get a hold of a list and send an email out to it, but it's generally going to be far more problems than it's worth, or lead to far more problems than it's worth. And here on the screen, before we move off this slide, you can see the example, get our email newsletter, get tips, tricks, and insider marketing secrets delivered right to your inbox twice per month. That's a very simple, very easy opt-in form that actually shows the value you're going to get from the email newsletter and prompts you right away to sign up for it. So that's the list. So now let's actually dig into the content of your email, starting with the subject line, and talk about how you can improve your email so you get more opens and clicks, because that's the purpose. You want people to open your email and read it and take action with it. And we're going to start here at the very top with the subject line. We're going to look at some tips right here, and then on the next slide I'm going to look at some example subject lines that I think work well. They're all very specific to Christmas and the holidays, since this is that time of year, of course. So first, some things to keep in mind with your subject line. You don't want it to be too long, around 40 to 50 characters at most. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, many email inboxes will cut the subject line off at around 45 characters. So if you go over that, a lot of people won't see your full subject line. And obviously you don't want that to happen. Also, the shorter it is to a point, the more likely people will be to actually read the full subject and you have the full impact on them. I mean, your subject line is the headline of your email. It's like the headline of a newspaper article. It should be short, concise, describe what the email is about, and be interesting so that people want to open it up. I know that's easier said than done, but you want to keep these things in mind when you're writing your subject. Don't repeat your from label in your subject. It's a waste of space. This may not be something that any of you have ever done before, but I have seen it where companies will take their from label, their company name, and then say it again in the subject line. And there's not too much value in that since everyone sees your from label first. I don't see why repeating it is going to get you very far if you need the space in your subject already to describe your email. There's also some fairly obvious things to keep in mind. Don't use all caps. That is email screaming. That is internet screaming. People don't want to be screamed at. Don't overuse punctuation or abuse the word free. Really, it's kind of a hard thing to nail down exactly what you'd want to avoid there. But what you really want to avoid in general is looking like you're trying too hard to get attention in the person's inbox. Having lots of exclamation points, using several places with all caps, anything that seems like I'm yelling for your attention is going to look like it's potentially spam to a spam filter, because that's what spammers have to do. They have to yell for attention, be tricky to get you to open the emails up, and if the filter can at all think that you're trying to be tricky, it stands a far more likely chance of sending you to the spam folder, because that's, again, what spammers are doing. If you're someone's grandma, you don't have to trick them into opening your emails, and so if people want to hear from you, you don't have to trick them or yell at them. And so state important info up front as well. No matter how long your subject line is, try to have it the most important info early on so it strikes people immediately within the first few words what they're going to get when they open the email up, so they're more likely to want to open it. Also, just in case their email inbox doesn't even allow for 45 to 50 characters in the subject. I know I read most of my emails on my iPhone, and the room for the subject line in there is much lower in the inbox, and so there I might have around 30 to 35 characters of a subject line. So it doesn't mean you have to tailor your subject to an iPhone, but just keep in mind that there are people on a lot of different mobile devices looking at your emails, and so even then you want to make sure that they get important info in the subject. So let's look at some example subject lines here. Just some ones that I like. We have book now, 10 dates left for holiday parties. That subject line gives you immediately a reason why you'd want to book now and open up the email to see what's going on. It's all about being action oriented so people have a reason to open it. Buy before December 18th, get 20% off. You now give people a reason to look at this email before December 18th because they're going to get a deal. Customer faves under $30. So these are interesting items that other customers like, and they're fairly inexpensive. Great reason to open the email up. Invitation, wine in store Saturday the 22nd. Have no reason, I don't think, to tell you why having wine in your store on Saturday the 22nd is valuable. I know I would be there probably if you had wine in your store. So, but it gives people a reason to show up and open the email for Saturday the 22nd. No shipping and handling for gifts under $25. Shipping and handling is one of the big impediments to companies selling products online, because it just seems like you're paying something that you wouldn't have to pay, obviously, when you go to a place in person. So anytime you can have no shipping and handling and announce that in the subject line, it's a great thing. And also you see how that's written. It avoids using the word free, but still conveys that there will be no shipping and handling. This doesn't mean you can't say the free shipping in your subject line. It's usually going to be okay to say, the word free one time in your subject, but that's a way to avoid using that word entirely. And order by 12/22, holiday delivery guaranteed, Christmas delivery guaranteed, whatever you'd want to write there. If you can tell people they're going to get their gift that they're buying from you before Christmas rolls around, that's going to be a good thing. You can see here on the slide I have some example subject lines that show how much room you have in a fairly average inbox. All of these companies are doing a fairly good job keeping it short. But here, claim your complimentary $500 what? I don't know what that is. Of course, that may actually make me want to look at it. $500 is a nice thing. But still, this one company has gone over the limit, and you see what happens when they do that. So that's subject lines. Let's talk about the actual content of the email itself. Now, obviously, I can't tell you what to write your email about, certainly not in a fairly short webinar that's on a lot of different topics. But there are some things you can do to make sure that the impact of what you've written is as strong as possible on your audience. And what you want to do there is make your content easy to scan. And we're going to look at some examples of some companies that have done a great job making their content easy to scan here in just a moment. But some things to keep in mind when you're dealing with this. Break your message into short blocks of copy. What you write for your email, it may be tempting to write a lot of content, or it may not be, depending on your situation. But if you do have a lot of content in your message, break up what you've written. You want to avoid having longer paragraphs. People are not going to open your emails up and just sit down and just read through them, get some coffee and just sit with it for several minutes. They're going to scan through to try to find what they like and what interests them. So breaking your message into short blocks of copy makes that easier to do. Try not to have paragraphs of more than 2 or 3 sentences. Use bullet points. Of course, in a presentation, it's very obvious why using bullet points are useful. You can actually more easily break out the information there. True, same thing is true in an email. You can more easily make your points readable by breaking them into bullets. Use teaser content as well. If you do have a lot of great content, if you have a newsletter with useful information, if you have a new product and you want to tell people a lot about it, don't just put everything in the email. Get them back to your site. Give them enough information to get them interested, and then link them back to what you want to tell them, because then you have them on your site, and they're more likely to take action on your site if they're there. Highlight your links and descriptive sentences. It can be useful to put your links in bold, so not just linking them, they're already going to be blue and underlined then, but then actually bold them so they stand out even more. And if you do have longer paragraphs or a lot of information, highlight some of the sentences in those paragraphs so people can call them out more easily. That way, if you do have, again, if you have 7 paragraphs of info, highlighting what each paragraph is about or what each topic is about can help people find what they want to read. And limit your calls to action and your articles. And this is something that we're actually even doing in our own newsletter starting next week. Give people less to look at. It may sound like a great idea to give people lots of variety so that they can choose from a lot of different things, but if there's too much variety in your email, they're not going to find what they want, and that's not going to interest them. So have just 1 or 2 calls to action if you're going to be doing some sort of offer, or maybe 3 to 4 articles at most if you're doing a newsletter, so people can easily scan through it, find what they want, and not be overwhelmed by the info that you're showing them. So first example I want to show here, Christopher Drummond Beauty. This is a great example of an email that is very easy to scan. It's one of my favorite emails to show off in presentations like this. You can look at this email, and in 15 to 20 seconds you can see everything that it's about. And that's very important because the average reader of your email is going to spend around 15 to 20 seconds deciding whether they want to take action with it or read more. So we have 3 main articles. We can see exactly what they are. New cruelty-free brushes, get this awards look, watch some videos with some images illustrating each topic to make it pop. And then they have a link in each place leading you back to what they want to show you. And then if you're not interested in these 3 things necessarily, they have this information on the left for you to scan through and see if you like that. Again, doesn't mean that your email has to be this limited in the amount of text you're using, but you can see here how this would be successful because it's so easy to see what it's about and determine whether you like or want to take action with what you see. And this is not something they built outside of VR. This was built using one of our templates. It's not been modified except for the colors within the template. This is exactly a layout that we have in our email canvas. Another example here from Biz Journals. You can see that they have made their email very easy to scan by using bullet points in the message. They have an opening paragraph that's really just a sentence describing what's going on, and then the benefits and how to take action. It would be harder to get too much simpler than that. You can see exactly what you're going to get and what you should do to get it. Let's talk about some other things to deal with in your content. You want to balance your images and text. And one of the main reasons you want to do that is that 39% of your users, at least 39% of your users, will probably have their images turned off by default in their browser. Doesn't mean they won't be able to see your images because they'll be able to turn them on if they want to, but by default the images are just going to be turned off. So as a result, if your email is too image heavy, it probably won't look very good in their browser. And if your email already doesn't look very good, they probably will not be inspired to turn the images on and make it look good. So maintain a text to image ratio of around 80% to 20% or 70 to 30. You can have less than that. You can have less images than that if you want to, but that's probably about the most you want to have is a 70-30 ratio where 30% of your email is covered in images and the rest is your text and other content. How do you actually measure that ratio? You would do that actually by just looking at your email, getting a feel for what's there. If it looks like it's about 80% text, 20% images, then you're doing all right. And then use alt text for all your images as well, because many email browsers will display the alt text for the image so that people can make a more informed decision on whether they want to turn the images on. If you've not heard of alt text before, it's just backup text for the image that describes what the image is about. In Vertical Response, in our Canvas tool, we will prompt you to add alt text to your image, and you should just use that to describe your image. Let's take a look at some examples with images turned off here. Now these are extreme examples because neither of these emails have any text at all. They're just images with the unsubscribe message at the bottom. But you get an idea of what happens. You may have already seen this in your own browser before. When images are turned off, you don't see them. And we see two examples of two different types of browsers here as showing what it looks like when images are turned off. This is Gmail up here. And here we can see with Gmail, it's very nice. They really prompt you strongly to display images if you want to look at them, and even always display them from the sender, which many people may do if they like your company. You want them to do that. That adds you to their address book, and then your images will always display for them no matter what. But outside of Gmail, most browsers are more like this, where there's actually a button sort of off outside of the email that you would click to display the images, and usually they don't have a display always option. You just have to display on a one-off basis. Which is also a reason you may want to prompt people to have them add you to their address book, because if you get added to someone's address book, then you are exempt from having your images blocked. You are exempt from their spam folder. So something else to keep in mind, you may want to prompt people at the top of your message, please add us to your address book. And that's usually something they can do just by clicking a button in their browser to add your address. So let's talk about improving the personalization of your email. And personalization can mean a lot of different things. One, it can just mean making your email more personal. You can show a different side of your company in your emails than you can on your website or other places. You may not see this with a lot of bigger brands. They often will treat the emails as if they were newspaper circulars to a certain degree, but those are bigger brands, they're not you. You may have a smaller business where you're actually interacting more directly with your customers, and so being personal like that in your messages can help you build a relationship with them. Same thing would be true of a blog. You have a chance to show them more about who you are and what your company is about than you would just when they visit your website. So put that to use in the email so you can connect with them. Also, that can mean using email personalization to refer to information that you have about them. So here we can see this is most commonly used to personalize the email with first name. So each recipient sees their own first name. Never a bad thing to do. If you do use personalization like this, though, be sure to use backup text as well. It would be formatted exactly as I've shown here on the slide. The way I have this set up, then if I have someone's first name in my list, they will see their own name there. But if I don't have their first name, then they would see my backup text I've written of favorite customer. That could be whatever you want it to be. So if you set things up like this with this dividing pipe in the middle of the personalization, the people will see their own name if it's there, or if not, they'll see your backup as well. You can do that with any field in your list. So if I wanted to tell someone that I'm going to have their favorite wine in stock because I just have all kinds of different wines, but I want to call out their favorite wine, that if I know that info, then I can personalize with their favorite wine. Or if I don't know their favorite wine, I could assume it's my favorite wine, which is this wine, which I've never been able to pronounce, but that I do really like that wine. I can always just see the label, so it's fine. So also personalization can mean segmenting your lists to create targeted messages. And so we're going to actually look at how to do that a little bit later on here in the presentation to show you how you can create more targeted emails by segmenting your list to drill down to more specific people. And so I'll talk more about that in a moment. But here's an example of someone making the email more personal. So this isn't really about email personalization so much as making the email actually connect with her recipients. So the person who sent this email is a chiropractor. So I like to use her as an example because a chiropractor is not necessarily someone you would expect to need or want to have an email newsletter. You go to the chiropractor when your back hurts, and then when it stops hurting, you stop going. Then you go back later when it hurts again. It's a very simple process. But by connecting with her patients in this way, she makes sure that she stays at the top of their mind. Should they need a chiropractor again, she's the person they'll be thinking of because she's connecting with them. And if a friend needs a chiropractor, well, then they have something to send that friend to illustrate why they should go to her. And you can see her email is very simple. It's not overwhelming people with information. She just does a little greeting there, something personal from her with a picture. Then she does a recipe of the month, so it's about more than cracking your bones here. It's about general health, staying in shape, staying healthy. So she gives people a recipe that makes them want to open up, see what's new to cook this month. She does a little humor with some vertebrae of the month, so information and humor there. And then she has her calendar of things that she has going on that keep people engaged, whether or not they actually need a chiropractor. A simple email, very easy to scan, very personal. It's one of my favorite examples, her emails, of a good email message. And of course, also you want to get more conversions from your emails that you send out. So you kind of always want to be closing in your messages. Make sure you have several links back to your offer that you've sent out. Don't just have, unless your email is very short, don't just have one link back to the message. If you have headlines in your email, turn those headlines into links to the offer, the information that you're linking to. And as I mentioned before, highlight and bold your links as well so that they're easy to find. Tell the customer what you want them to do and why they should do it. If they're interested in buying things from you, that's why they buy things from you. And the reason they want to hear from you is because they want to buy more things from you. So tell them what's the reason they want to buy this item and then make it easier for them to do it. Don't be bashful about that. And link directly to the page of the offer. If you're showing people an item, link to that item. That's pretty obvious, but you don't want to link people to the main page of your site when you want them to show them something else because then they have to go digging for it, which is not going to be all that fun necessarily. And so I'll give you an example of this. This is a newsletter, but you can see here they do a lot. They do a very good job of linking. All of the titles in their newsletter are links. So for aggressive moves in a bad economy, that's a link you can click on right away. They have read more links. So you can read more right at the top, read more right at the bottom for each of their articles. They're trying to get people back to their site to actually finish the article. And then their images are actually links as well. So right here, you can actually click 4 places to get to the article itself and get to their site. Now you don't necessarily have to have 4 different links every paragraph that you've written, but you get the idea. They've made it very easy to get back to their website. And their email is also very easy to scam because they're using teaser content. They have these longer articles, but if they put them all in here, then the email would be much too long for anyone to scan through and find content that they want. So let's actually go into the account to talk about the other things I wanted to show, which is getting more from your reporting and also creating targeted lists using our segments tool. So I am going to go into an account here. There we go. So first, let's talk about the different things you have available in Vertical Response with your reporting. So we're going to go here to emails, sent emails. So we're going to look at some stuff here, and then we're going to look at some more advanced stuff like Google Analytics integration and click-to-conversion tracking and talk about both those things. So first, the reporting that you have in your account. I'm sure at the very least you have seen what you see on your main page, your open rate, your click rate, bounce, unsubscribe. That's lovely. If I click on my email, I go to a more detailed report, something else you've probably already looked at. You get a lovely graph here showing your open rate and click-through rate and your total opens and clicks. You get a graph over here that shows you the amount, what's happened over certain periods of time between 6 hours and 2 weeks. What you may not know is that you can actually pick this graph up and drag it around, which is not in any way useful, I don't think, but still it's always worth showing. There's probably nothing better and no more useful way to look at a graph, a bar graph like this, and straight on from the top, so I'm really glad that we included that functionality. If you right click this graph, you can always reset it. But you get to see your links and how many clicks each link received, your lists, and see how each list performed, see your email compared. And of course, each of these reports have a more detailed link that leads to a more detailed report. So if I go in here to more comparison details, I get a more detailed comparison report. And this more detailed report lets me actually compare other emails here. I only have 4 emails in this account, but if I have more, I can actually select up to 5 emails at a time to compare in this report. Some other things that you may not know about here, there's a domain report. Now, this email I'm looking at only went to vertical response addresses, but if I could see up to my top 100 domains I mailed in this report. So I could see how I'm doing at different companies that I've mailed, at different providers to see what my open rate and click-through rate is at Gmail versus Yahoo. So each of these reports give you more detail than you see on your dashboard. So they're always worth checking out. Some other things that you should always keep in mind when looking at your reports is that you can export this information. You can print it out, you can download it to a PDF, you can export it to a spreadsheet. Very easy to do that there. And also there's some slightly hidden actions over here on the left. Download lists. This allows you to actually download specific groups of people, say who opened the email up, who clicked the link, see exactly who did what with your message, and get that and take a look at it. You can also create a mailing list with this information. So let's say you do an email and you want to follow up with your non-responders, people who didn't take any action with it, and try something else with them, try a different approach. You can come in here and say, I want to create a mailing list of all non-responders. Name it whatever you want, click Create List, and that list is then part of the list section of your account, and you can use it in an email. Something else very valuable in your reporting area that you may not be aware of is that you can make a copy of any email you send out to use as a template for a new email. So you just click the Make a Copy link. We'll then let you name that copy and drop it into your drafts area of your account where you can edit it and send it out again. So that's your basic reporting stuff, and a lot of that you may have already known and you may already be using, but I wanted to cover it because it's important that you actually do use your reporting when your email goes out, because that's the only way you know whether you're being successful or not. So I'd always recommend comparing your emails against each other, but not comparing emails of a different type. You don't want to compare newsletters to sales emails because those are different things, and you're going to expect different reactions from your customers based on those two different types of messages. But compare newsletters against newsletters, product announcements against product announcements. Look at those things over time and see, is your open rate going up? Is it going down? Keep up with that, because that tells you whether you need to make changes or take action to ensure that your emails continue to succeed as time goes by. So be sure to put your reports to use and actually measure what's going on. There's also some more advanced reporting that you can use in our system that's free to use. You just have to turn it on. And you find that in your account, which is your profile, under Analytics settings. So we have Google Analytics integration and click-to-conversion tracking. So to describe both of them here, the Google Analytics integration, if you're using Google Analytics to track traffic on your website, you can use this for two things with vertical response if you turn it on. One, in Google Analytics, if you turn this on, you would see vertical response email as a source of traffic to your website. And so with that in mind, you could actually compare your emails against people coming in via searches or ads, so you can see how much traffic your email is generating compared to other efforts that you're putting out there. Also, you would see under ad versions, again in Google Analytics itself, you would see everyone who came to your website from your email, how long they were there, and how many pages they visited. So it's a nice way to actually look and see what people are doing once they get to your site, whether they're actually taking action. And also, you could tie that in with your reporting that you see in vertical response and see if people who are clicking certain links are tending to do more with your email than people who are clicking other links. So are certain pages more likely for people to take action on when they get there? You can really dig down and take a deeper look at what's succeeding and what isn't. So to turn this on, you just click Add Domain. To add the domains of any website you're tracking, you only need a domain. You don't have to add every page you want to track. Just the domain for your website is good. Then you save your domains and you're done. Now, if you're not using Google Analytics to track traffic on your website and you need something to track traffic with, it's free. You can sign up here, or you can Google Analytics, and as you would expect, that's the very first thing that comes up. You can sign up there for free. Click-to-conversion tracking is something that works within your account, and there are two different versions of it. There's click-to-conversion, which is just the standard. You choose this option, click Submit Changes. We then give you a snippet of HTML code that you can add to any page or pages on your website. And then if someone reaches a page that includes this code, they will be tracked in your account as a conversion. So it's a nice way to take your tracking past the click. Now, where would this be useful? This will be most useful on, say, a thank you page that follows a purchase, or a confirmation page that follows a registration of some kind. Because then if someone reaches that page, you know they've taken all the steps. They clicked the link in your email. They found an item to purchase. They purchased it. You're now actually thanking them for that purchase. They've therefore done everything they need to do, so they should be tracked in your account as a conversion. So that becomes a new statistic in your account. Just like opens and clicks, you then have conversions. So that's a useful way to see if people are actually taking action. It won't track everyone, because not everyone's going to click a link and make a purchase directly through the email. They may go back later outside of your email to do that, but it still gives you an idea of how the conversions are going. There's also click to conversion plus ROI calculator. This is click to sale tracking. With this, we can actually track in your account the revenue that's being generated from your email, from people clicking a link and then going on to make a purchase on your website. With this, you also get some HTML code that you add to your site. It's a bit more complicated though, because you have to be able to insert the amount of money they spent into that snippet for this to appear in your account. And so for that to work, if you do have a thank you page that follows a purchase, on that thank you page you probably say thank you for spending this much money in our system. So there's some sort of field that makes the amount of money appear on that page. And so you would just be inserting that same field that makes that happen into this snippet, so that we could then get that information into your account and display to you how much revenue has been generated from people clicking links and then making purchases. So it's just valuable stuff, free to use, that you turn on, that you should certainly take advantage of if you're not already, because why not? It's free, and it tells you more about how your emails are succeeding. So that's some reporting stuff to keep in mind. Now let's talk about list segmentation and targeting. And I save it for last because not too many people put this to use, but it's really one of the more valuable things you can do to see success with your email marketing. The more targeted your emails are to your recipients, the more likely your email is going to be to succeed with them. Obviously, if something actually connects with people more, it's more about what they want to read or what they're interested in, they're clearly going to want to read more of it or take action with it than if it was something more generic that would supposedly fit with everyone. Now obviously when you do this, you can't be specific to each individual person exactly what they like. You're probably not going to know that much about them as a company and not as their close friend, but still you can get people in the groups and actually write them based on those groups and be more likely to succeed with that. So first, if you want to find the segments tool, it's under List Segments. The first time you go there, the system will give you a little description of the segments tool and ask you if you want to turn it on. Do not be wary of turning it on. It is free. There's no charge for this. There's no secret charge, hidden charge, future charge. It's just a free tool that for some reason we give you a splash page on before you can turn it on. So when you get here, to create a segment, you're working with any information that you have in your mailing list. So the value of the segments tool is going to be based to a certain degree on how much information you already have for your customers. If all you know is first name and email address, then there's not too much segmenting you can do. But depending on the type of business you have, if you know their actual address, their city, their location, you might do special offers based on zip code or different information like that is specific to them. If you know whether they're a customer or just a prospect, I would say that's where I would always start with segmentation. If you know nothing else, that's something that you should know and that you should work with, because you got to figure your customers are going to react to a different kind of messaging than your prospects are. Usually they're going to be more likely to, because customers already have that connection with you. They know who you are. They're ready to work with you. They've bought from you before. Whereas a prospect has not made a purchase yet, and so they may need different kind of messaging to get them to make that purchase. At least it's worth testing and trying out, because again, two different types of groups that may need different info. Also, something else to think about are whether someone's actually made a purchase recently or not. A customer who made a purchase last week, is going to be a warmer customer, and they may react to different types of messaging than someone who made a purchase 2 years ago. So treating people differently based on actions and information is going to help you get more from your email. So let's talk about then how you can use our segments tool to take action with that info to split your list up to be able to do this. So I'm going to go here to new segment, and give my segment a name, and choose segment type. So when I do this, I'm presented with several options for doing a segment within my account. I can segment just my list members only. In this case, I am only segmenting based on information in my mailing list, so things that I've uploaded to my account. I can segment based on campaign recipients. This is kind of a weird way of saying you can segment based on your reporting data. So any information you have in your reporting on your recipients, you can use that to segment your lists, like opens and clicks and conversions. You can also work with both at the same time. You can also merge data together. Let's keep things simple here just to show how this works. I'm going to go segment list members only, save and build segment. And so now from here, I select which lists I want to work with. So if I'm trying to segment a certain group of customers, I could do one list or a couple of lists with that. Or I could just get everyone through my master list, which is what I'll do here. And now you're setting up search filters to find the people you want. And you can search, again, using any data in your mailing list that you have previously uploaded to your account. So let's look here. I want to search. What I want to do is I'm going to have a party in San Francisco for my customers, but I only want to invite people who are around San Francisco. So I'm going to limit my invitation to people in the city of San Francisco. City equals San Francisco. Or city equals Oakland, or city equals Berkeley. And we could go on from there, but these are really all the urban core of San Francisco. San Francisco, Oakland, or Berkeley. Everyone there I want to invite to this event. Now you notice I chose or instead of and there. I did that because if I chose and, it would only find people who were in San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley, and no one's address can simultaneously be in all three places, so that wouldn't work. So or will find people in each of those groups. And now what I also want to do is only send my invite to customers, not prospects. I created a field in my account, customer yes or no, and so I only want to reach out to my customers. But the problem with that is that needs to be an and then. And you notice that I can only do and or here. I can't do both at the same time in a search here. It just changes them all. So how could I say I want to find people from all three of these cities, all of them, but I want to limit that just to the customers from those cities. Because if I did or customers, it would find all my customers anywhere. What I would do is switch to advanced right there, and then I can add another rule. So let's add a list rule, and then I'm going to say and. In this case, I'll search through the same list. I'm going to say and customer equals yes. So now it'll find everyone in those cities, but then limit it to just those people who are customers because it did and. Again, if I did or, it would find everyone in those cities and then all of my customers anywhere. So and limits it, just like that. Now when I'm done doing this, I'm actually just going to delete this rule. I'm just going to find everyone in those three cities. When I'm done with this, I go to save and get results, and then I'll get a preview of what's been found through my search. My preview looks good. I continue right along to save results. I continue right along. There we go. Okay. And then I name my list that I want to create and go to create lists, and I am done. I'm on my way. This list then becomes part of my account. It has no impact on the other lists that it pulled from. Everyone still appears in all the other lists they may appear in. It just creates a new list, a new segment that includes the records that match the search. Now one of the things that we'll look at here in segments while we're here is another very valuable thing to do, and that is to test your emails. We can talk about all the best practices in the world all we want, but things are going to vary from company to company based on your own customers and how they respond to things. So to get the most out of your emails, you want to be testing. your emails, testing different subject lines to see what works best, testing out different times for your email to go out, testing different types of content for your message. It doesn't have to be a constant thing, but it's a good idea to do it sometimes at least, and to see if you can improve things by doing tests. And testing allows you to try things out with a smaller part of your list, so you don't just switch up everything on everyone and then potentially to get worse responses because your change was not as good as what you were already doing. So to test, I can split my lists up into smaller groups so I can do testing with those smaller groups before I make a change with a larger list. So let's go in here. We're going to go to a new segment again. I'm going to do my test. Choose segment type. This is the last thing we're going to do before Q&A, by the way. I'm going to leave this alone, segment list members only. Save and build segment. And then I choose which list I want to work with. I'm just going to choose these 3 lists here. Click done. So what's going to happen here when I do this segment, it's going to take all these 3 lists and combine them together, and then it's going to split them into new lists. And that may be a little confusing to do it that way. Why don't I actually just go again with my master list. So I send a newsletter out to my master list every month, we'll say. But now I want to try different times. I've been sending my newsletter out every first Tuesday of every month, but now I'm not sure if that's the best time to do it. I want to try maybe Thursday, every first Thursday, and then maybe try second Wednesday, just to see if that has any impact on how many people open my email. So I'm going to go with my master list. I'm not going to put any filters. I'm just going to leave it alone. Click Save and Get Results. So that'll find my entire list. Then I save my results because my preview looks fine. And now I create multiple lists with this information. You see I have that option there. I'm going to choose multiple lists. And then I can choose the number of lists I want to create. And I can allocate them by percent. I'll leave that alone. Then I just click Update. So now what I do is set the percentage of people I want to have appear in each of these segments. So it's going to take my master list, which will not be affected at all by this, but it's going to take the people in it and create 3 new lists at random, split up based on the percentages I enter here. So I want to have one list be 15%. That's the one I'm going to try on the first Thursday of every month. Another list be 15%. That's the one I'm going to try on the second Wednesday. And this last one will contain the remaining 70%. And I'm going to leave it alone and still mail it on the first Tuesday because I don't want to change things too much just in case my changes actually are negative towards my open rates and my responses. This way I can test things out with smaller groups, and then if it works well, I can then switch it up for everyone else. So I'm going to have this list 15, this list 15, this list 70. I could rename each list if I wanted to too. I'll actually name this main list just so it stands out. So I go and click Create Lists, and now these 3 lists are being created in my account. See, that first list has a random 411 records. The next list 411 records random, and then the remaining 1900 in the main list. So now if I go back to my mailing list section, there they are, ready for me to use in an email. So that's testing, and it's a very valuable thing to do. But with that said, I think we are now ready for some Q&A. So let me open things up here and start answering your questions. Do note that there will be a follow-up email going out early next week. That follow-up email will have a link to the presentation itself so you can download it. It will also hopefully have a link to the recording since I didn't get it started till later on. It should have worked just fine. I do lots and lots of these, but I do occasionally make a mistake. So the recording may not be there when the email goes out, but I expect it to be. Also, there will be links to other valuable information to help you get more from your emails as you do more of them. But now, first question. I see a lot of the names in my email list bouncing back. What factors create a bounce other than an incorrect address, and how can bad addresses be fixed? As a general rule, 95% of your bounces, 99% even of your bounces are going to be bad addresses. So just keep that in mind. As I mentioned in the presentation, up to a quarter of your list is going to bounce every year, generally as bad addresses because people change their addresses at work and just in life in general around every 4 years or so. So keep that in mind. You should expect to see that over time. So your high bounce rate It could potentially be the result of how often you send mail. If you only mail people once every few months, then you're going to see a higher bounce rate every time you do that than you might expect to see. However, other things that can cause bounces, it's possible that someone's server could be temporarily down and that could cause a bounce. It's possible that the message that we get back is not correct from the server, because there are literally thousands of different types of messages that come back and they're not always coded properly. And so they may have the wrong number for the bounce actually put into the message than what is actually going on. Now, we do try not to actually bounce things that are temporary or potentially messed up. We've in the past been fairly conservative about bounces and have gotten less and less conservative as time goes by to try to make sure we don't do any incorrect bounces in the account. So if someone bounces back as being undeliverable, but it seems like it's temporary, we'll try those people again for several days. And then if it still doesn't work, we usually won't even bounce them after that. We'll leave them in your account unless they have the same sort of bounce happen over several different emails. But in your case, if you want to learn more about what's going on with your bounces, reach out to support, and you can write them support@verticalresponse.com and see if they can pull up your bounce reasons for you. They'll at least be able to do it for your more recent emails. Then we can actually look and see what the reasons are for the bounces and see if there's some issue there that can be corrected. And then, does personalization count in the subject line character count? So if you personalize your subject line, so if you put personalization in there, which you can do, would that count against your character count? It would count against your character count, and it's really not something you can have as long of a subject line as you want in vertical response. So you could have a subject line with 300 characters if you want to do that. There's no limit in the subject. It's just a recommendation that you keep it lower than 45 or 50 characters because of there's only so much room in someone's inbox. And so because there's only so much room, naturally when their name appears there in the subject line, if you personalize it, that's going to take up space, so it will count against the number of characters. But you can have as long of a subject as you want to have. It's just best to keep it short. And again, since there have been so many questions about it, these slides, again, will be linked to in the follow-up email, so you can access them, print them, do whatever you want with them. So question, we are sending out a customer newsletter full of great deals and promotions for the holidays. What kind of subject lines would you recommend? We sell digital goods. For newsletters, would you steer clear of making holiday subject lines? Like treat yourself this holiday season, or is adding a holiday flavor to a subject line like line good? I think it's good to add some flavor to your subject line. I think in general, and I don't know why you generally want to avoid it if you have specific reasons for it, but I think to a certain degree marketers are a little wary of mentioning specific parts of the holidays for because conventional wisdom now says that you want to avoid that for some reason, but I don't think there's anything wrong with mentioning Christmas or mentioning any other holiday at this time of year in your subject line or in your message. People are celebrating this time of year, and there's no reason for not to call that out in your own emails that you're sending. I think it makes your email stand out to a degree, even though people's inboxes are full of holiday stuff right now. You're just part of that, and if you don't do something holiday related, yeah, they may not notice it alongside the other things. So I think it's not a bad idea to call it out. I think those subject lines that I put earlier in the presentation, which I'll put up on the screen again just so we can look at them, are good examples of what works well when dealing with subject lines this time of year. I'll just pull that back up. Giving people definitely a reason to take action because people are making purchases and buying things related to giving gifts right now. And so it's a good idea to make your own email match that, regardless of what you're doing. Now, if you're doing something B2B, that might be harder to do, but still, it doesn't hurt to have a message that relates to that. Will the 80-20-70-30 rules apply to retailers that sell apparel? Those rules would apply to pretty much any email you send, but they're not hard rules that you must follow. I mean, plenty of larger businesses, that especially larger companies, will do emails that are really image heavy, and because they want to show off something that they want to show off the beautiful images that they've paid a lot of money to have taken and made. And so it doesn't necessarily hurt to go bigger than that. You just have to consider people having their images turned off and then not turning them on when they receive your email. But if you need to show off bigger images in your message because that's who you are, then it's okay to do that, but it's good to try to keep your image total, your image size in the message itself as low as you can. But you've got to balance that with your own needs in your message. When you state to ask them to add your address to the address book, which address are you suggesting? The address we specify as reply address or the address that is used as a from address generated by vertical response? It would be the address that's the from address that would need to be added to the address book because that's where it's coming from, whereas the reply to is obviously where it's going when they reply. So that's the address you want them to add. However, you don't necessarily have to get that specific. With just about every browser that's out there, you can just click a button in the email itself to add this person to your address book. So you really don't necessarily have to be specific with the address. If people have to go in and type in your address, they're usually not going to do it anyway. So just reminding them to add us to your address book, there's going to be a button probably next to your from label that they can use to add you. What's a good open rate for a message? In general, that's going to vary. It's very hard to tie that down. It's going to vary according to industry and your own list and the people who you're mailing and how often you mail them, how long they've been on your list, all that stuff. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're around 20% or higher, your open rate is pretty good. Doesn't mean if it's lower that you're not doing well based on what you're doing, but 20% or higher, that's a good rule of thumb. If you're doing better than that, then you're doing all right. And it doesn't mean you can't do much better than 20%. There are people with much higher open rates than that, but it's just about where you'd want to be to consider yourself to be doing well. From your perspective as a professional email marketing company, do you feel that a nonprofit going away from print newsletters versus email newsletters are as likely to get a response? I actually think that you are as likely to get a response than a print newsletter. Now, depending on how many people you're mailing and how engaged they are, that could vary. But I think people are used to getting email now. It's easier to open up an email than it is to open up an envelope and flip through what you've been sent. So I think, yeah, you can see just as much, if not more, engagement with the newsletter via email because people can immediately take action with what you've written in an email, whereas if it's written out, they'll have to actually go type things in or look things up to take action with what you've sent them. So I think you could expect more engagement even from email. And what's nice is that you can actually measure that. You can actually see, did they actually open it? Did they take action with it? And that's very valuable in determining what you should do going forward. Can you segment a list based on links clicked in an email? You certainly can. I'll quickly scroll down here and show you what that looks like. If we go into the segments tool and I went in the new segment here, we'll just do and choose segment type, and then I go to segment campaign recipients. Save and build segment. You can choose any emails I've sent out, one or more. In this case, I'll just do one. And then I can say, let's find people who clicked. I could do any link or a specific link. And I can have it contain something in that link or actually put the specific link they clicked in there. So if you know the specific link, you would just copy and paste it in. Or if you don't know the specific link, you could say, well, I know it was at this page on my site. It was on my specific product page. And you want to, if it includes that, well then they'll find that link and it'll only be those people who clicked on that link. So yeah, you could do that with any number of links as well. You could say they have to have clicked on 2 different links, or they can have clicked on this link or another one, or of course you can have it be any link at all. Is it possible to segment based on email domain? Very much possible to do that, and I'll show you that since we're here. If we were to go back and actually work using lists here, I could say, let's add a list rule. I'll choose any of my list, but I'll just go with my master list again. And then let's say email address contains, or even ends with, but I'll say contains, yahoo.com. Or it contains apple.com. You could even do @ if you want to just be sure. But in that way, you can actually drill down to specific people at domains. Anything in your list you can use. It doesn't matter what it is. Any information that's there, and you can have it equal exactly that information, or you can have it contain that information. So you can really drill down with the search options there. What day is statistically best for sending emails? You know, it's a very widespread as far as what's best. I would say Mondays through Thursdays in general are going to work very well. People come in on Monday not wanting to work and read their emails in the morning. And you know, when people come in the morning and they're just getting settled in, they're cleaning out their inbox, it's not a bad time to have the email in front of them because that's when they're going to be paying more attention than what's there. Also, after when people get back from lunch during the day, so after a lunchtime when they've sat down, you know, they're getting back into work, and so they're looking over personal things and different information. That might be a good time to do it. But it's going to vary on your own audience. There's really not that big of a statistical difference between days that I've seen, even going through the weekends, that would make it that big of a deal based on the day. I would test your audience. I would do some tests with your audience and see what kind of response you get. But usually I think if you're Monday through Thursday, it's not going to be that big of a difference, generally speaking, but you should test it if you're interested and see if there are big changes for you. So I'm going to try to answer questions for at least 5 more minutes here, and there are still a lot of questions here, so I want to try to get through as many as I can for everyone still on the line. And just for those people who don't want to stick around for the rest of these questions I'm answering, I do want to thank you for coming out today. I really appreciate it. I hope this was useful for you. And you know, do watch out for the follow-up email on Monday. It'll have links, hopefully, to the recording, assuming that everything went off well, since I didn't plug in until after I started. Usually I would do it beforehand, and so it may not have gone off the way I wanted it to. But you will have at least a link to the actual presentation itself you can download. You'll also have a link to a survey asking how the presentation went. That survey has 6 questions in it, so if you have a minute to fill it out, I'd appreciate it, because that helps me determine whether the presentations went well or not. So keep an eye out for that. But now back into questions. In the reporting, can you download by a specific link to filter like you can do with the surveys? That would be helpful in identifying follow-up. In the reporting, you can look at individual links and how many clicks they received. Also, in the reporting that you download, you can see the links that were clicked. So you could sort that in the spreadsheet by link and actually see how they were clicked. You can't choose which link you want to download, but in the spreadsheet that will be called out which links were clicked by the individual, which link they clicked. And so you can sort by that and then actually look at them that way. Have you created or looked at creating an opt-in form that can be utilized on a Facebook fan page or other social networking presence? You actually can use our opt-in form on Facebook. You just have to take a couple different steps to set it up, and I've made a video on that very topic. If you go in your account to Help, and you go to Lists, Grow Your List with Opt-in Forms, I have a video here called Add the Form to a Facebook fan page, and that will show you how to add your form into your Facebook fan page. It's about 2 minutes long, the video, so it doesn't take too long to watch it and learn how to do it. Should we delete bounced email from our lists? You can go either way. If you delete them from your lists, you won't have to worry about them again. We do make them unmailable automatically from your account, so you don't have to think about it. But deleting them, if you delete them, we won't forget that they bounced. That won't mess anything up for you. They just won't be there in your account anymore for you to look at. So if you care about that, if you want to keep things really clean in your account, then I would say delete them, but you don't have to, because we're going to make sure we're going to process all that stuff for you automatically. Where do you put the tracking code in your website? Very good question. So on the page that you want to track, say, a conversion on, you could put the tracking code just about anywhere you want, but as an easy way to do it is to put the code right above your closing body tag in your HTML. So if you have a basic knowledge of HTML, or if you know a lot about it, you would just go into the HTML itself, go right to the bottom of the HTML document. You'll see a closing body tag there, and so you could just put it right above that tag. That's the easiest way to do it. Any way to get reporting of details about clicks, bounces, etc., other than downloading them to Excel to see exactly who clicked the link and all that stuff? You do have to either download the information to Excel, so you would have to download it to get at it, or turn it into a mailing list in your account and look at the list. That's kind of maybe not a normal way to do that, but it would work that way. It would work actually fairly well, not for bounces, but for clicks and opens and things like that. If you wanted to see exactly who opened your email, and not have to download it to a spreadsheet, you could go in to send emails, go to that report, and say, I want to create a mailing list of everyone who clicked my link, who clicked the link in my email. And then you could see exactly those people in that list. You could be even more specific by using the segments tool to say, I want to find the people who clicked this link. And then you could see them as a list in your account. Then when you were done looking at it, you could delete that list. So those are other hoops you have to jump through, and I don't know if that's any easier than looking at an Excel spreadsheet. But if you don't have Excel or any spreadsheet program to open the file up with, then that might be an option to do it. Next question, why would our email rate as 7% spam? I don't know where your email rated as 7% spam. That would be, that's not a rating that we would show usually, and we wouldn't even, that would be weird to actually have happen. If you got 7% complaint rate, if you got a report from that from Vertical Response, if we reached out to you, I assume that might be what you mean, that 7% of your list said your email was spam at a certain provider, like Comcast, Yahoo, places like that. Usually that means that people simply are not recognizing you in there as a sender. They don't recognize your company, they don't recognize your name, something they're not recognizing it. So when they get your email, they're clicking the report spam button in your account. That's what would lead to you having, say, a 7% spam rate, is people choosing to click that button. And they usually do it because they don't recognize you. So that could mean that your list is older and you haven't mailed it in a while. You figure if someone became a customer 3 years ago and you've had them in your list but you haven't mailed them till this year, then they're probably not going to initially remember you when they see your message, so they may, just as a knee-jerk reaction, click report spam, because it's just a button in their inbox they can click on. So you have to think about the age of your list, and also whether or not your company name is the same as when people signed up on your list. If you're using a different name than the name they knew when they signed up, then they're not going to recognize you and they're going to be more likely to report you as spam, and that's what can lead to a high complaint rate like 7% at a provider like AOL or Yahoo. They all have little buttons people can click, and we actually get those reported to us, and so we do follow up if you're over the rate they allow, which is usually 1% or less. So once an email address bounces, they are blocked and will not be sent again. Is that right? That is right. So a few more questions here before we go. I'm sorry if I don't get to your question, because there's so many of them. But if I don't get to your question, please do reach out to our support team at support@verticalresponse.com. They do know the answers to pretty much any question you want to throw at them for the most part, and would be able to get back to you with an answer to the question. Does Vertical Response spread the email that you're sending over time, or do you blast the email immediately? We do send it immediately. It goes one person at a time, obviously, as it goes out, but we do send it right at that moment. So if you're sending to 10,000 people, it might take 2 minutes for the email to go out, but it will be going out all at once to those 10,000 people, one person at a time, but one, really, really quickly. So we don't spread it out over time unless the provider we're mailing to would prefer that we do that. There may be some providers out there, Yahoo occasionally, when they're really, really busy, they want providers that they know to not send as much mail into their system over certain periods of time. They want you to break it up, spread it out, slow it down a little bit. So there could be occasions where a provider may want other providers to slow down the delivery of mail into their system, but that's not normal. It doesn't happen all that often. So when that's not happening, we do send them all out at once. We don't spread it out, because it's expected. We have a good relationships with all the service providers, and our IPs are expected to send out large quantities of mail. If someone forwards the email to a friend, do we get that address? You do not get that address unless the friend chooses to sign up with you, which they can do just by clicking a link in the email. But you won't see that unless they click that link. If they do, you'll get a list in your account called F2AF, and that will actually show the people who've done that. Many of my customers commute via sign language, and I would like to embed a video message. Can I embed a video in the email? You can embed videos in email. It would work if you did that whenever you looked at it in your web browser, and it will also work in some email browsers. Apple Mail is an example that videos will work in there. There are a few other places where video works fine. But for the most part, even though it may work for you when you look at it, your recipients, the video will not work. They'll probably see it there and they'll be able to click the play button, but it won't do anything because Flash is generally disabled within email browsers, and Flash is usually what your what your video is going to be playing in. But even beyond Flash, most video formats are going to not work right in an email browser. So what you'd want to do with that, the way around it, this is something even YouTube does in their own emails that they send out, is get your video in the player so that the play button is on the screen that you would click to start the video. And then do a screenshot of that. And I don't know, depending on what computer you're using, if you're on a Mac, if you do Command-Shift-4, just as an example, you can actually draw on the screen what you want to take a picture of, and that will take a picture of it. So you could do Command-Shift-4 on your Mac to actually take a picture of just the video player with the play button in there, and then you could put that into the email, and then they would see that. It would look like a video to play. When they click it, that will just open up wherever the video is being hosted so they can watch it there. That's the best way to do this, the easiest way. Now, if you're not on a Mac and you want to take a screenshot, you would choose the I forget exactly on a PC. It's been so long. It's been at least a few years, but print screen will take a screenshot of the entire screen. I forget exactly how you would take a screenshot of just a specific place that you were looking at. You can't choose like you do on a Mac. You'd have to edit it afterwards, but you could take a screenshot and then cut it down just to be the video player itself. But that is the best way to do it, is have it hosted somewhere else and show them an image that looks like a play. So I'm going to do 2 more questions here. Do you recommend using a subject line like June newsletter for a newsletter, or using using a snappier line that doesn't indicate it's a monthly email? I think June newsletter works because it lets people know it's the June newsletter that they've been expecting. But I think actually describing the content of the newsletter to some degree is more valuable, just because that lets people know what differentiates this newsletter from last month. It gives them a reason to want to open it. Gives them a reason to want to open it up. It's kind of like if you have a favorite author, they could label each book they send out. This is book number 1 by this author. This is Neil Gaiman's book number 1. Neil Gaiman's book number 2. Neil Gaiman's book number 3. That he's written. And of course, if you like Neil Gaiman, you'll open that up and you want to read it. But by having a title to the book too that differentiates each book, it adds more interest to whether you want to read it or not. So I think the same thing is true of your email newsletters. People are interested in what they're reading, then saying June, July, that's fine because it does tell them it's the next newsletter. But actually describing the content to a degree, I think, can lead to more value for you. And let me just try to grab a... Do you think that images are important in an email or a newsletter? I do think that images are important in an email and newsletter. Now, while I'm obviously telling you not to go overboard with images, I think they're very valuable in illustrating your content. They can really make what you've written kind of stand out. An image is always going to... They don't say images are worth 1,000 words for no reason. There is value there, and it can draw people's eye to that part of your email. So I would say it's valuable to have images. If you don't have the pictures you need for your message, you can always search our free stock photo gallery. If you go to your library and your account, there's a search gallery option, and you click that, and then you can open up and look through our 75,000 free images to find some for your email. So I do think it's valuable. We just don't want to go overboard. Also, someone referenced that we actually do have a subject line cutoff in our tool at 80 characters. So we recommend being less than 50, but apparently we cut you off at 80. We didn't used to, and I've been here such a long time, I usually think I know everything, but I clearly don't if we're cutting people off at 80 characters. So keep that in mind. Your subject line, even though it's a good idea to keep it underneath 45, you can keep writing in our system, but ultimately it appears you will be cut off at 80 if you try to go that far. So there we go. That is the last question I have time for. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. Please do write support@verticalresponse.com. They will almost certainly be able to help you out. But I do really appreciate you coming out today, and I hope you have, if you are celebrating Hanukkah, that starts this weekend, have a great Hanukkah. Of course, Christmas is coming up, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. And then after New Year's, have a great 2010, and let me be the first person to say Merry Christmas 2010 as well for next year. All right. Thanks, everyone.